there is a scandal amidst. You know what I'm saying? There is allegations afoot. There is cheating apparently that has been taking place. And for once, Lewis can sit there not having to hear about 115 charges because it ain't about them. It's about Chelsea. Chelsea. Off the back of beating Spurs and drawing Manchester City when they're on the high, boom, the news has broke. And now apparently there have been some accusations of cheating and breaking of FFP under Roman Abramovich, stemming, I think, all the way back to the late noughties, early 10s, you know what I'm saying? So they're looking at 2010, 11, 12, 13, 14, all the way up to 2020 with allegations of breaking FFP, including things such as paying Eden Hazard's agent 7 million euros on the side, you know, looking at deals with Willian and how that came about. And Rory, I want to go to you because you made a tweet earlier as well about this as well. Do you think what Chelsea have been accused of, they have actually done?
Yeah, definitely. Obviously, I don't have any proof, but it's one of those things. There's no reason for it to come out now if there wasn't any truth behind it. And there's a lot of respected journalists that aren't going to just invent a story that Chelsea have done this. And I'll be honest, I don't think Chelsea are the only club to have done this. In fact, I'm certain they're not the only club that will have done this. It's just that because of the way that Roman Abramovich has left and they've been scrutinised, that a lot of it's coming out. But I mean, I think that thing with Eden Hazard's agent is actually unbelievable when you look at it. The fact that Arsenal had pretty much agreed to sign Hazard. Hazard wanted to go to Arsenal. His dad wanted him to go to Arsenal. And suddenly his agent vetoes the move, convinces Hazard to go to Chelsea. And a few months later, 7 million euros lands in his bank account from a Roman Abramovich company. I think it's mental. Absolutely mental. But it's one of those. Chelsea will get the heat for it now, but I'm sure over the years, lots more examples will come out of different clubs. So what can you do?
Yeah. Lewis, obviously your club have gone through similar kind of investigations in different contexts, but like they're going through it. But looking at this, what do you think about this whole thing? Like, do you think Chelsea are not are now, but have been doing some underhanded tactics to get their honours?
Well, I mean, if you read the reports that are coming out, it certainly doesn't look good, right? You know what I mean? And this needs to be taken seriously, man. This needs to be taken seriously, bro, because we cannot have Premier League that has cheats in it. Yeah, honestly, we need to have the integrity in the game. And if this has been happening, then a severe punishment must come down, as I was told many, many times. So we'll see. But listen, I know that obviously when these owners, when they come in, they like self-reported some stuff. So stuff has definitely gone on because they self-reported some of it. I don't know how much of this has come out through investigation or whatever. But listen, I mean, it's what it is. We'll have to wait and see what happens. It's difficult to say what can happen from this situation, you know, because the problem is, right, when it's like a financial breach, you know, it's difficult to say what the punishment should be, right? Because like Juventus when they cheated, like that was an actual sport in cheating. You know, they cheated. Yeah. They cheated on the pitch. So like that's easy to say. Now you cheated on the pitch. That's ridiculous. That is shocking. Sin a bit, relegation. When it's a financial breach, you've then also got to prove, like, was it an intentional? Was it just like a mistake? Like, and then it's like, what's the punishment? Like, how do you punish for a financial breach? You know what I mean? And like I say, then you've got to prove whether or not did they. Obviously, the Eden Hazard one, obviously that looks sus. But like, you know, other scenarios, and you got to try and prove, like, did they do it on purpose? If the club's still denying it, like you could say, well, we think you've done it on purpose. The club could be staring you saying, it was a mistake, or we underreported it, or we misunderstood the rules, which obviously can happen when you've got these complex FFP rules. So I think FFP, this is why I think FFP should just be scrapped, because I just think we've had nothing but trouble since FFP come in. We never used to have I can't remember any like financial situations before FFP. It was just like, it is what it is. People spent what they want, and that was what it is. I'm pretty sure since FFP has come in, more teams have been cheating, more teams have been bending the rules, and I think that will continue. So I'd just scrap it. But yeah, with the Chelsea thing, listen, it's going to be interesting to see what happens. The Eden Hazard one certainly looks interesting. I'm sure there's a lot of other stuff there, but you know, what I would also say is these clubs and these owners are they're not dumb. They're not dumb. You know what I mean? These are some of the smartest people in the world. So they would cover the tracks. They'll make sure that this is by the way, this is on the proviso that they're actually guilty. If they might just be innocent, we don't know.
Yeah.
But even if they are guilty and they did do these things purposely, you know, you think that they're just going to make it like, oh yeah, we'll just give you 7 million. They would have made some transaction. You know what I mean? If they asked Eden Hazard's agent and said, well, what's this 7 million? He'll probably, you know, because these guys aren't stupid, he'll probably say, this is what happened. We've got a reasonable explanation. And then what the difficulty is, we might all go, yeah, that's dodgy, mate. It was clearly because he signed for Chelsea and this is a payment to you, as Rodri says. But if this guy's got legitimate like paperwork to say, oh no, it was I sold him a house or whatever, then what are you going to do? Prove that that's what it was. Like, this is why I just think that the whole, for me personally, I'm not even just saying this as a City fan. I was always against it, and I'm still against it now, even though we've got our revenues up and now we're seeming to chill on the FFP thing. It's all the other clubs that are struggling. I don't like it. I think it's completely shocking. It stops clubs from investing in the football club, which I think is ridiculous. I can't believe that's a thing. And I just think it encourages cheating and bending the rules. You know, you've got Chelsea doing these long-term contracts. You've got Arsenal signing Raya on loan when they couldn't sign him on a permanent contract. You know, everyone just, regardless of how small or big people are bending it, people just bending it. Scrap the whole thing and let's go back to how it was. And if you want to do some spending cap or whatever, fair dues.
Yeah.
But I just think since FFP's coming, it's just been an absolute. It's just been. This never used to happen, bro. Before FFP, this never ever used to happen.
So the argument for FFP, which why they say they put it in place, is to protect clubs from going out of business. So you don't have billionaires coming in, inflating the market, inflating the club's expenditure.
That's BS, KJ, and you know that is BS.
Listen. I'm not saying I agree with it, but this is their reasoning. I think you can do that. You can stop clubs from going out of business at the same time as allowing clubs to spend money. I think there is a happy medium between them both. FFP, I think personally, is just a way to control football, but not actually make it better. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
bro,
not actually improve
FFP. If anyone thinks that FFP was brought in to protect clubs going bust, then you're an idiot. You're a fool, and you don't actually understand what this thing is. Yeah, that's. I'm sorry to put it bluntly, that is the truth. FFP was brought in by the big clubs to stop clubs like City, like Chelsea, and like anyone else who got bought from cracking the top. Because, you know, clubs like Real Madrid, clubs like Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Juventus, they can't afford for these clubs just to get bought and come up. You know, they want to keep getting the Champions League revenue. FFP, anyone who thinks that is just living, in my opinion, in cloud cuckoo land. That is not what it's for. And in fact, evidence of that, Niall Quinn, former City manager, was a chairman at Sunderland, right? And when he was a chairman at Sunderland, he went to the original meeting about FFP, right? He said this on, this is you can find this on Sky Sports. This is what he said. He said he went to the meeting about FFP, and when they was talking about bringing in FFP, what they said was what you just said, KG. What we're gonna bring in. We're gonna bring in this thing that's gonna help clubs not go bust. And he said when they actually brought in, it was completely different to what they said it was in the first. He said it was completely different. And this was a chairman of Sunderland. So just scrap the whole thing, man. It's shocking. And people saying, that it allows pay to win. Well, you know, not necessarily. You know, how many clubs spend money? Everton spent 400 million. Chelsea spent $1 billion. You know, yes, money obviously helps, but you've got to have the right setup. You've got to have the right coaching situation.
All I'm saying is, if you just let go of the reins, put in a better set of rules where everyone can spend, then it becomes not about who spends the most money, is who runs the club better. You know what I mean? I think it would actually improve football teams, because it's like, right, we've just seen that just spending money don't work because everyone else is spending money and you're still getting relegated. So how do we advance our team in different ways? And look, FFP is a problem. I do think there's ways around it. I do want to protect teams from going bust like that. I don't want things like QPR and Bury and all these other clubs that have come up and come down. But at the same time, you let teams advance quicker, man. Like Brighton shouldn't. If Brighton have got the money to do something within 3 years, they shouldn't have to wait 5 years to do it, or 6 years, or 8 years to do it, just because they're now told you're not allowed to spend. Because any other business outside of the sport will be able to spend as much as they need to get their business up and running. So yeah, it's one of those ones.
Well, just quickly, before we move on, I'd also say that FFP is now going to hinder those smaller clubs even more because the transfer market's inflated. So you can only buy a certain amount of players before you reach the cap. Whereas, 15, 20 years ago, players were cheaper. You could buy more players. You know what I mean? So now it's even more difficult. A suggestion that I had, right, is if you really want to stop teams going bust, then you should tell clubs that you have to put in a year's worth of operating expenses into an escrow account, and that you can't be touched. And then if your owner one day says, I'm not putting any more money in, you've got a full year's worth of money of operating costs sat in a bank account. Now, a couple of things on that. One, you can't tell them to do it overnight, because the likes of the giant clubs, you know what I mean, the Uniteds, the Cities, the Arsenals, the Chelseas, the Liverpool, who spend 500, 600 million pounds a year on operating expenses, are not just going to be able to find that overnight. So you've got to implement that over a 10-year period, right? But Rory, let me ask you a question. Say that was brought in, saying like the rule was Arsenal got a full year's operating expenses in an escrow account by 2033. So 10 years they've got, right, to put this money in. If the club doesn't have the money in the account at the end of the 10 years, they get a 20-point deduction. Because then, if that happens, Rory will know that the only reason that they've got that deduction is because the current owners have not protected his football club by putting that money in. And then no one could have a problem with that. Now, that's a proper way of solving it, but you've got to give him a proper timeline. You've got to give him an extended period of time to put that money in. But FFP, man, load of nonsense.
Yeah. Rory, question. Are you going to say something, Rory?
Well, I was going to say the only thing with that is that if you've got owners like Arsenal, Arsenal's owners are rich, but Arsenal might have to, hold back some of their spending to start filling up that escrow account over the next 10 years. Whereas for your owners or Newcastle's owners could just dump the whole lot in there straight away. No problem, no sweat. So there would still be an unfair advantage there. But there's always going to be, this is the thing, right? There's always going to be an unfair advantage to the teams that have the richest owners, because there will always be legal loopholes that they can get around. There will always be ways of getting around whatever the laws are, and they will always pay the lawyers more than UEFA or the FA or whatever. So it becomes a complete off the field race of lawyers, basically. And the lawyers that are employed by these super wealthy owners will always be ahead. So I genuinely don't think there is.
Oh, Rory gone. Rory, is that just me? I mean, can you not see Rory anymore? Is he? Is he
dipped, mate?
He's dipped. Oh, hey, listen, you're waiting for pull the plug, man. They're like, nah, none of this making sense.
You know what? Can I just address a comment quickly in the chat? Yeah, Rohan there says City fan wants FFP removed. Why am I not surprised? Rohan, I want FFP removed for the good of football. As a City fan now, from a competitive point of view, I want FFP to stay. In fact, crank it up, bro. Crank FFP up to the max. Because what you don't understand is we've now got into the drawbridge. As much as they all tried to stop us, we got under there. So from a footballing point of view, for my club, if I'm talking about City being competitive, I want FFP ramped up, because then that helps my club. Because, whether you believe the revenues or not, my club's making a lot of money. It's making a lot of profit. So we can spend basically what we want. You know what I mean? I want it removed because I believe that Brighton should be able to get taken over by a billionaire and the guy invests what he wants. I believe that Bolton should be able to be taken over by a billionaire and invest what they want without restrictions. So this is the thing. People are so tribal about FFP that they don't even understand how the bloody thing works. You know what I mean? So I've got to point that out, because again, people don't really understand how it works, man.
Yeah. Sorry, before you cut out there, Rory, what was you saying?
I can't remember. Basically, there's no way of getting around the fact that the richest owners will always be able to use their wealth to get an advantage. That's just that is just how it is.
Yeah, and we'll see what happens, develops in the next few years with this. Obviously, they tried the Super League. They've tried different ways of potentially getting more money and getting around with FFP. So hopefully there's a change for good in football, especially with like regulation and stuff like that allows people to spend, but not to the point where it will cripple a club.